Netflix documentary The Buried Truth, which is the story of the Sheena Bora murder case. Let's go through. I won't do any spoilers just yet. Will be coming soon. I'll give you an early spoiler alert, but there'll be time before spoilers. So firstly, I'll give it a bit of a rating. I'll probably rate this like about a 7.5 out of 10. Okay, so it's good. It's interesting to watch. There are some interesting characters. The story itself is interesting. How it unravels is well produced, well put together. There are some decent like cliffhangery type moments as well. There's a lot of information given throughout the documentary, and it comes from some interesting sources. The sources they've got are actually really good for this documentary. So if you haven't seen it at this point, I'd say, yeah, go and watch it. I'd recommend it. It's interesting. Go and watch it. It's tragic, of course, but as a documentary, as even a learning piece or something like that, I'd say, yeah, go watch it. Okay, that being said, spoiler alert, we're now going to start moving into things. Okay, so what do you guys think? Again, spoiler alert, by the way. What do you guys think? I think she did it. Like, I know it's like kind of not right to say that without like proper proof and stuff, but I don't know, it just comes across like that. Even though it's a proper horrific thing for a parent to do. You know what I'm saying? Right. So I'm going to give you my take on things. Okay, so here's my perspective. I think that she had, so it was Indrani, that's the main woman, that's the mother in it. And then the daughter who went missing is Sheena. Okay, so Indrani, of course, had a very troubled upbringing in a way. Okay, and as a result, she ends up having what is probably one of the most craziest things that can probably happen to somebody, and that's she's having like her father's child, which of course is mental to even say, to be honest, but that's her story, isn't it? So I think that happened, right? And then her and her mother will have come up with the lie that we're going to tell everybody in the village or everybody else that this is your sibling, this is your sister, this is not your daughter. All right. That's what I reckon the mother came up with to protect the family in the village, because that might have gotten a little bit crazy had that got out. And I've heard stories like this before where this kind of thing has happened, and then they raise that child as a sibling as opposed to anything else. So I think that happened, that lie. And then, of course, she mentions that the father was kicked out of the house for a while, in which time Indrani then has a partner, and I've forgotten that partner's name. I can't find that guy's name, so we'll just call him some guy. So some guy and Indrani have a child together. He's called Mikhail, and as when he's a baby, so she's got Mikhail and she's got Sheena, and she's living at home with her mum. The father is kicked out. The mum wants the father back in the house, and as a result, Indrani is like, no, I can't live here. I don't want to be living here with him, because the event keeps coming back to mind whenever I see him, and there could be more because there were multiple attacks that he had caused on her. So anyway, the father's coming back into the house. So Indrani leaves. And this is where she goes, and this is where she builds a new life. Now, while she's gone, it's a case of those parents raise Sheena and Mikhail as if they were the grandparents' kids. In other words, like they are Indrani's sister and brother. That's how they do it. So, strange, but what's happened here is that lie has just carried on. That's all it is. The lie that Sheena is the child of the grandparents, that's kind of half true, because it is the granddad / father's child. And then the lie that Mikhail is also, but of course, neither of them are really. Okay. So they're there getting raised, and as far as they're concerned, they're like, my parents are my grandparents. They're my parents. They're who brought me up. So yes, we are brother and sister to Indrani. Okay. Indrani's gone. She's building a whole new life, and she counts herself as some kind of really successful seductress. Like she was saying, whenever she walks into a room, she can catch attention and stuff. And she used those superpowers to get herself a certain man or a certain type of man. Okay. So there she is. She's now with this rich dude and they're living a big life. And I believe she mentions that she had told him the truth of who Sheena really is. Yeah, the full story. And who Mikhail really is. So there's this belief that she's told him the full thing. Anyway, she eventually goes back and she reunites with Sheena and Mikhail. Okay. And she says to them, listen, you can't call me mum. You're going to have to call me sister, like forever. That's the deal. If you do that, we can have a life. And I can financially support you as well. That financial support I've got to come back to in a minute. So that's the deal. Now, they're happy families for a while. I suppose they've pulled the wool over everyone's eyes and things are good. In this time, Sheena starts a relationship with the rich man's son, who he had from a previous marriage. I'm pretty sure that's the case. So Sheena and this rich boy are not related. He was proper English, by the way, wasn't he? He was proper English. And I've got to give him credit for what he did. He was like recording the phone calls from the start. Like full credit to this guy. He did a good job. He was on the ball. And I think he was on the ball because Sheena had told him early that, look, there's tensions here, there's issues here. Just be aware, if I go missing or if something happens, this is the deal. So I'm pretty sure he was like clued up. You can kind of tell from the communications that he was doing. He was saying things like, let's go and find her. Where is she? Why don't you guys care? She can't just disappear. This is all out of character. Let's go find her. Let's go find her. And then he was saying, I'm going to put a police report through. And they were like, well, there's no point because we've put a report through already. And he's like, well, that's fine. Just because you guys have doesn't mean I can't. Or, yeah, if I put one in now, then it's double. Do you know what I mean? So like he actually was saying things that suggested that he knew that something was a bit amiss here. Anyway, so there's this relationship between Sheena and Rich Boy. And there they are, they're getting together and stuff. And at some point, there's some kind of like breaking point, yeah, where it's as if Sheena wants to come clean. And she's sick of saying, you're my sister. She's sick of that. And she wants to move on and start calling her mum and put things to the way they are. I think that was the breaking point. I'm not sure as to what snapped and resulted in her untimely demise, but something snapped, and maybe I missed that part. If you guys know what it is, put it in the comments. But something snapped. Okay, something happened. And as a result, Indrani shows that if things don't work out here, things aren't going to work out well for you. You've got to stick to the deal, or there's going to be issues. because somewhere around this part, she had, so Indrani had somehow, she had like drugged her son, like spiked his drink, and then put him into a mental house where he was getting like electroshock therapy, basically torture. They were torturing him. I don't know how he got out of there, to be honest. He was there for a year. Can you imagine being perfectly sane and then getting put into a mental house for a year? And not just that, like a proper rough one where they're proper doing invasive things to you for a year. Anyway, that happened. And I'm sure after that he was petrified of her, because like, who wouldn't be? You know what I mean? After that's happened, you would be like freaking out. I don't know how he even kept it together on this documentary. Like, he seemed like a normal guy, even after he'd been through that much. While I'm on the topic of him, of Mikhail, that's Indrani's son, a point that came up was from Indrani. She was like, look at this message that he sent me. He says like, oh, I love this car. Thank you for the car, blah, blah. And then he goes, could you send me X amount of money? I'll love you forever. Something like that. Okay. And then later on it cuts to him and it tells his part of the story. And he says that my agreement or my relationship with Indrani, with his mum, was purely for financial aid. And for me, that's totally understandable. Because for me, India is one of is probably that place in the world. India is that place in the world where the wealth gap is so huge, it just blows my mind. There are people there who are crazy rich, like billionaires. And then there are people who like proper do not know when the next meal's going to come. No roof over their head. Like, no chance of medicine if they get ill. And then on the other side, there's billionaires. It's just really quite tragic in that sense. India is like really shocking in my perspective when it comes to that. So I can understand that his relationship with her was related to money, because she was very rich, at least involved with somebody very rich as well. She was rich, you can tell. So him being like a nobody, there's risk of him being really poor at some point, like really poor, scary poor. So I can understand why, yes, he would like fake a loving relationship with his mum in return for financial aid. Made total sense. I get it. You know, I wasn't suspicious of him. And aside from that, he's definitely scared of her after she's put him into a mental house for a year and all that happened. He's definitely scared of her. And I'm sure he would have warned Sheena as well, like, listen, you got to be careful, she is actually dangerous. And I'm sure that information then got back to Sheena's rich boy. Okay. Now, it moves on, of course, and we're at the point of Sheena's disappearance. And so one day, she's suddenly gone. And they suspect, I think the rich boy it was who suspected that he knew when that happened, because it was a night when Sheena was busy with something. So he thinks that he knows when it happened. So there's it just happens, then she's gone, and then this whole big massive disappearance and this fake search in a way. And then of course there's this email account which starts up, and it starts sending emails like, oh, leave me alone, let me go, we have to break up, these kinds of things. Really weird messages coming from it. I'm actually really surprised that those emails could not be traced back. I mean, this is India that we're talking about. The IT hotspot of the world. Yeah? I'm surprised that they couldn't trace back those emails and those communications to find exactly where they came from, exactly which device, at what time, date, cell tower, all that stuff. So, yeah, that's a bit weird. Also, this was interesting. The main top dog police chief who was on the case, after a certain point, got taken off the case. And I found that interesting. I was like, that is interesting, that how this top dog, real legendary officer was removed from the case. And for me, that's actually brilliant work by India's police, because there is a huge chance of corruption, unfortunately, in that part of the world. And India is definitely very prone to corruption, unfortunately. It is the case in some countries. There's a real struggle with it. And if this main top police commissioner guy, whoever he was, if he was dragging his heels, if he was trying to protect the rich, which happens so often, then it was right for him to be removed from the case. So I was actually really impressed by Indian police to have done that. That was brilliant work. And I think after he was removed, things actually started moving ahead with the case. Again, really impressive. And then, there's some weird emails and stuff. And then eventually Rich Boy gets his recordings and he puts them in as evidence or something. I don't know. And at some point, Indrani, the mother in this, she was looking to buy some land, and apparently the land which she was looking to buy, that's where they found Indrani's body. How mad is that? So she was shopping for land, and either in that land or in that vicinity is where they found Indrani. That's crazy. And that's like a mad bit of evidence, isn't it? That's a bit too much of a coincidence, if you ask me. Anyway, the whole thing is proper tragic, and it's a shame it happened. And yeah, I suppose it's one of those where there are no cold, hard, clear facts, because I don't think she went to jail, did she? I think she kind of got away with it. So that's the case. As a documentary, it's worth watching. It's interesting. But for now, that's everything on that documentary, which is The Buried Truth on Netflix. And thanks for watching. Catch you guys in the next one.